Azir is by far the highest carry potential mid in the game. There is almost nothing this champ cannot do.
What is the desert but the ashes of my enemies? Soldiers, onward!
He can win lane, he can shove, he can teamfight, he can split push, and he can even play like an assassin, all while being one of the highest range champions in the game. And it's not like he's a jack of all trades but master of none either. He literally outperforms specialized split pushers and duelists, all while having countless other win cons. But if Azir is this OP, how come he isn't picked more often in solo queue? To be honest, Azir is a misunderstood champion. Most players, and probably you, think that this champion requires insane mechanics and skill to be able to pick up, intended only for the pros to use. But this could not be further from the truth, and Azir is much easier now than ever to pick up because Riot's actively been making Azir easier for average players to play by buffing his early game damage and skirmish potential. And if you ask us, Riot up. Azir was always a lane bully, but now his dueling power from the start of the game is insane while still having the same poke damage. In other words, Azir has no real weaknesses. Get excited because this is the only Azir guide you're ever going to need, starting from the beginner all the way up to the challenger level. Mastering Azir is just one part of the journey though if you want to climb ranks fast. So remember to join us over at Skillcapped if you want to learn how to dominate mid lane with our world-class courses and rank improvement guarantee. But more on that later. Now, let's start by going over the basics, combos, laning, playstyle, runes, and items to bring your gameplay to the next level. So the big reason why every mid laner thinks Azir is hard is because they're thinking like a mage. If you learn some fundamentals that ADCs learn, then this champion becomes one of the easiest in the game to play. I'm going to give you all the settings and tips to make your life infinitely easier, making you deal pro level damage on Azir. The first setting that simplifies Azir is binding your attack move click in the hotkey settings. It's really up to you which key you want to bind this to, but if you have absolutely no clue, spacebar is a great option just because of how big the button is. Also, this is very important. Make sure that you check in the attack move on cursor option in the settings. This will make it so that instead of autoing the closest thing to your champion, you'll auto something near your cursor. Combining these two settings will get rid of awkward moments where you click air and lose out on damage because of mouse accuracy. You could even go a step further and combine attack move click with target champions only, so that you'll always hit a champion instead of a minion or a monster. On top of these things, Azir's Q hitbox and range is insanely big, so as long as you keep yourself in range of your opponent, your damage is guaranteed, and Azir will start to feel almost like a point and click champion the more you play him. So in reality, the only two abilities you'll actually have to worry about landing are going to be your E and your ultimate, which you'll learn how to use in the next section of this guide. Up next, we'll be breaking down Azir's abilities and combos, starting with the basics into the more advanced combos. To start, his abilities. His W lets him place a soldier down within his auto range, and the soldier's actual stab range is higher than the summon range, shown by a circle around it. For reference, Azir's soldiers slightly outrange Caitlyn, so this auto range is around 700. If you're about to leave the soldier's auto range, the game will show you a golden indicator that shows you the exact range. You can hold up to 2 charges at once, but you can actually place down 3 or more soldiers by using W off cooldown, and each extra soldier increases damage by 25%, making Azir one of the hardest DPSers in the game. Next up, his Q. Azir's Q lets him reposition his soldiers, dealing damage and applying a slow. If you hit someone with Q more than once in one cast, then only the slow gets reapplied and not the damage. Azir's E is a shield plus damage dealing dash that takes him to the soldier nearest his mouse cursor. If you only have one soldier out, it'll default you into dashing to that soldier, so watch out. If you're out of range and you press E, nothing will happen. Upon reaching your soldier or colliding with an enemy champion, your dash will end. An insane interaction that most players don't know about is that Azir's E will actually give you a W charge when you hit a champion. This makes the ability extremely OP for dueling, combined with the shielding plus damaging effect. Next up, Azir's ulti, one of the most iconic abilities in League. Azir's R will shove enemy in the direction he casts it towards, and the range includes a little bit behind himself as well. Also, the width of the wall gets bigger the more points you have in your R, so this ability gets easier to use with time. After ulting, Azir's wall of soldiers will remain, and allies can go through it while enemies can't. This interaction is extremely useful for kiting and 1v1ing. If the enemy is hugging a wall, then they can actually be shoved onto the other side of the wall, but sometimes they won't be. This depends on 2 things, how close Azir casted his ult to the wall, and how big the wall itself is. For most walls, Azir doesn't have to be very close to the wall to knock them across. But for huge walls, you have to literally be hugging it to shove them over, and this can be useful for escaping. Alright, now that we know how his abilities work, let's combine them to create combos. But first, you should know that Skillcapped has hundreds of guides just like this one that unlock everything you need to know to climb fast in League of Legends. I highly recommend you watch our premium Master in Minutes courses, where we break down the most complex concepts in the smallest amount of time so you can actually apply them in minutes. Our members love these courses and constantly tell stories of how they climb fast with Skillcapped, and you don't need to take their word for it, as we are the only service that offers a money-back guarantee if you don't significantly climb. So don't waste time and sign up today if you're serious about improving. And with that, back to Azir's combos. Azir's combos look like they might be hard to pull off, but they're actually all based off of two very simple combos. The first simple combo is WQ Auto. You summon a soldier at max range, then instantly Q and auto while they're slowed. This is your bread and butter combo for dealing damage, and it's nearly impossible to miss because of the hitbox and range. The only way you can miss this is if your opponent is running directly away from you. So if they're running towards you, standing still, or moving sideways, this might as well be a point and kill it combo with how guaranteed it is. Building onto the bread and butter combo is the W Auto Q Auto combo. Basically, you add in as many autos as you can before your opponent leaves range. This lets you get the max amount of damage off because you can Q auto right before they run away. Although this is higher damage than the WQ auto combo, it requires your opponent to actually be in range of your soldier as you spawn it, otherwise just use the previous combo. Next up is the second simple combo we'll be basing our advanced combos off of, WEQ. This combo revolves around the fact that while Azir is traveling to a soldier using his E, he can input Q to extend the range he dashes. To gain the max distance, delay your Q cast until the very last moment. This is what it looks like when you cast WEQ instantly, and this is how far you go when you delay your Q until right before you meet your soldier. And to cover even more distance, you can cast W over the halfway point of a big wall and then EQ normally. You can even juke out your opponents by going backwards with Q. The WEQ combo can be used for two purposes, all-inning and repositioning. Mastering the timing of this combo will let you clean up fights or safely DPS from the backline by repositioning. One variation for this combo is WE Delay Q. In this version, you let yourself reach the soldier with your E and then Q so you don't get dragged along with your Q. This is especially useful if you're not in range to auto, but you don't want to full commit dash in. Another variation is simply QE. If your W happens to be on cooldown and you can't summon a soldier behind you, this is your best bet at escaping. Moving on to the next evolution of this combo is the WEQR combo, also known as the Shurima Shuffle. Key to this combo is pressing R as soon as you crash into a champion with your E. Sometimes your opponent will flash as soon as you collide with them, dodging the Shurima Shuffle. This brings us to the final evolution of Azir Shuffle combo, which is the WEQ Flash R combo. If you know that your opponent has flash, using this combo will 100% guarantee that you knock them back towards your team. You can also use this combo if you need some extra range to secure your R on a flashless target. And finally, Azir's Secret Assassin combo. This hidden combo, you stack as many soldiers as you can while in fog, then RWEQ. This makes it so your soldiers are positioned at the landing point of your ulti while applying maximum damage from your E and your Q. Next up, Azir's laning phase. Azir is one of the hardest carrying champions in the game because not only does he scale like a god, but he is one of the most obnoxious lane bullies in the game, if you know how to play him. His early game dueling is a melee champion's worst nightmare, while he still beats most mages due to how strong and guaranteed the poke from his WQ auto combo is. When you're laning as Azir, your main goal is to poke, shove, and get as many tower plates as you can. This especially gets easier the more points you get in your W, which increases your damage all around, leading to better shove and poke. The only time Azir might struggle in lane is the first 3 levels, and we'll be showing you exactly how to play this phase of the game. First off, Azir only has mana issues before his first base. This is because his base mana pool is on the lower side, and his mana cost actually goes down with levels. So once you have your mana item, you're basically working with an infinite mana pool. To solve this early mana issue, at level 1 you have to use your normal basic attacks on minions until you can guarantee a W auto trade. Azir has one of the cleanest auto animations in the game, so it might actually be easier to last hit this way early. By not Wing until you're 100% sure you can land a W auto on your enemy laner, you save 40 mana, which is about 12% of your mana pool at this point. The best time to place your first soldier down is when the enemy needs to last hit a minion. This guarantees that they have to choose between trading back or last hitting. Of course, if your opponent literally just gives you a free W auto angle before that, then take it and use the soldier to shove instead of using your basic attacks. The thing you need to watch out for early is tanking caster minions. If you go too far towards the enemy side of the lane, the trade will end up not being worth it. At level 2, you unlock your Q, which means you get to use your bread and butter damage combo. This combo outranges almost every trade in the game, so you can poke your enemies out for free without tanking anything back. The only way you can lose lane as Azir is if you miss a Q auto combo, because that costs 110 mana, and if you don't get any of the enemy's HP in return for it, you'll run out of mana and lose your advantage. To avoid this, make sure that your opponent is not running away from you when you cast Q. It's easiest to use this combo when your enemy is shoving or last hitting, since that's when they'll be most vulnerable. At level 3, you have the option of putting a second point in W or putting a point in E. If you have good vision and know you won't be getting ganked, always go for an extra point in W. The damage increase is insanely noticeable. Otherwise, if you're scared, put your point into E to escape potential ganks. Azir's laning is so powerful because he can poke and shove while not having to worry about ganks thanks to his WEQ escape combo. Once you base and buy your mana item, you can play a lot more brain dead since you don't have to worry about going out of mana anymore. Azir's laning never changes. Don't rush to win, you just slowly and methodically wear people down with poke that they literally can't interact with. Summon soldiers on the wave to gain shove advantage, use your WQ auto combo to poke, and then use it again to poke them under tower. If you've done everything correctly up to this point, your opponent will be hard stuck under tower with low health, and you can throw in a solo kill, plates, or even a roam, giving you the option to impact the game in any way you want. Next up, playstyles. Azir has two separate playstyles that are both extremely strong: teamfighting and split pushing. Azir is one of the best team fighters in the game, with his insane damage, range, mobility, and the versatility to both kite back or go in for the kill. Of course, we can't talk about Azir's teamfighting without his iconic Shurima Shuffle. Pulling off a Shurima Shuffle is one of the biggest flexes as an Azir player, but this play is actually bad in 90% of teamfighting scenarios. Once you commit to being the primary engage, you're going to be extremely out of position if your teammates don't follow up properly. And since you're playing solo queue, you can't really rely on your teammates to provide damage, even if you pull off an insane 5-man engage. That's why the best time to use your ult aggressively is as a follow-up secondary engage after the enemies blow through important cooldowns. Until you see this angle, the best way to teamfight as Azir is to play backline and play front to back using your soldier range. However, front to backing sounds much easier than it actually is unless you know to watch out for these two fundamentals. The first is positioning. You want to be in a spot where you're behind your tanks and or boozers. Every ally champion in the game should be viewed as your meat shield. Yes, even your ADC. Azir's damage potential is worth it. If you can't get yourself in a spot behind your frontliners for an upcoming teamfight, then you're better off playing for Azir's other win con, split pushing. We'll get to that soon, but for now, let's talk about the second fundamental. The second thing you need to pay attention to is spacing. If you don't know what spacing is, in a nutshell, it's keeping yourself in a comfortable range where you aren't at threat from the enemies, but you can still DPS. This is actually pretty easy to pull off if your fight starts off with good positioning. When your enemies run away and your frontliners are chasing them, you go forwards with your team while still staying in the backline. Azir's priority targets in teamfights are whoever you can hit. If you're hitting literally anyone in the team fight, you're playing Azir right. Of course, if you can choose between hitting the enemy carry or the tank without changing your positioning, try to hit the carry. After team fighting like this, if your opponents get low enough, you can angle for an aggressive Shurima Shuffle to finish them off. The other team fighting scenario is where your opponents are pressing into your team. In this case, you walk backwards with the fight while weaving in soldier autos if possible. Worst case, a bruiser or assassin gets on you, but your ult can save you from a situation where basically any other carry would have died. If you see someone about to jump on you, you can buffer your R before you get CC'd or damaged to save your positioning. Using your ult as a peel tool is extremely OP because chances are the enemy already used their dash to get on you, so you can set them back to square one and they can't come close again. If you're still in striking range of the enemy champs, use your WEQ as a kiting tool to reposition to a spot where you can hit your enemy, but they can't hit you. And if you still have your flash, this is your last and final tool to save your positioning and space the enemies. Having 3 self-peel tools is what makes Azir such a strong team fighter. Most carries only get 2 at most, a flash and sometimes a dash. And Azir's other playstyle that is just as strong as his team fighting is split pushing. Split pushing is something you want to go for when either your frontliners refuse to position around you or your team is too weak to win the team fight. Obviously, Azir is insane at team fighting, but that's team reliant and you never know what type of teammates you'll get in solo queue. The best part about Azir is that his split pushing is one of the strongest in the game, and this playstyle can either snowball your game even harder or give you time to catch up in gold for teamfights. The reason he's so strong in side lane is simple. Azir's passive can give you a temporary numbers advantage on the map that no other champion has access to. By setting up your tower, you effectively create a 6v5 scenario in the game. combined with your ability to Shurima shuffle your enemies into your tower, Azir Splitpushing win con can single-handedly take over games. But even without tower, Azir's matchup into most side laners is just winning. You win against most bruisers and assassins because you can self-peel with your E and your R, directly countering their kits. If you're versus a mage, your mobility advantage lets you escape danger from ganks or go in for the kill like an assassin. Azir's versatility is his biggest strength in solo queue. Don't be afraid to split push if your teammates are underperforming or if you yourself need time to catch up in items. Alright guys, that wraps up this video. Remember, if you want to climb now in League of Legends, then sign up to Scale Cap today. We here want to thank you for watching and wish you the best in ascending the ranks.